I'm a Huskers fan. I will be forever. But there was a story, and I'm tired of talking about them, and I love them, even though they have disappointed me. But I want you guys to tell. Max Olson will join us tomorrow. Nebraska has lost 56 scholarship players to the transfer portal, the second most in the Big Ten. Of the 56 who left, what does this say that 45 stayed in the program for 2 years or less, 19 were gone by the end of their first year, and even worse to me, this stat is that of the 40 players from his first three classes who transferred out, only 14 of them ended up remaining in the Power Five. That's where Appalachian State, Marshall, and teams like that, and I'm not saying it because they get the guy from Nebraska, but that's something, think about that number. The attrition number is awful. Everyone's attrition numbers are pretty bad. But 40 players from his first three classes transferred out, and yet only 14 of them remain playing Power 5 football.
Yeah, that's not good. It says that he's missing on a lot of recruits. There's guys that don't fit. There's guys that don't fit in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I think it also is a larger problem with Nebraska in that when Bob Devaney and Tom Osborne and Frank Solich were there, and I know Solich didn't win a title, but Solich still had that identity. When those three coaches were there, Nebraska had a real identity of who they really wanted to be. So you didn't have to worry about guys, even if you took that in the modern context. If you knew that you were going to be a team that knocked people in the mouth, you had big offensive linemen, you were built around running the football, you were, your defense was about, swarming and all that stuff. Heck, Wisconsin has that identity that Nebraska really has in the Big Ten now. I would say that that's probably the closest thing to what.
Well, who's their AD for the longest time? Who was the coach that led
Barry
to that?
Alvarez?
Who played at Nebraska?
So they have that identity there at Wisconsin. They have that, and they had it in Nebraska. Since that time is over, since the day they fired Frank Solich,
9 wins.
They have not ever had that identity again. It's very similar to what happened in Miami. To me, when they left the Orange Bowl, they lost their identity. And so they haven't been able to grab back who they were, and it's not like the college football world waits for all these people to come back around. They're going to keep moving forward, and if you can't get on board, then, you're left in the dust. Who Nebraska and Trevor Alberts hires next has to grab that identity back. Or it doesn't have to be that identity, but an identity that's going to be a 30-year identity. That's what Alabama has right now. They have a core, like what Nick Saban has set up is this is what we are. And he's always adapting, which is what makes him the smartest coach around. So he's not just, we're going to do this, this, and this. He's changed his offense with the times, as opposed to Nebraska's kind of doing what Jerry Jones and the Cowboys do. Like, what's hot right now, we're going to do that. But the reason that the teams that are in the playoffs consistently over and over again are always in the playoffs, when the Patriots are doing that, when the Ravens are doing that, is that they have the same identity for a long time and they build their rosters around that way. College football has to be that same way.
It is stunning to me that they've lost that many players, and that many players they lost were not even going to other Power 5 programs. And then again, not, because that's why they've been a dumpster fire for really almost 10 or 15 years. Mike Games, Nebraska, there's everything that happens to them. They fired Bo Pelini because ESPN was mad because he spoke out against SEC ESPN TV network. Well, his temper had a little bit to do with that. You can only get away with that for so long. He did win 9 every year. But they also, the reason he got fired was that, but also because they always got slammed by somebody giving up 50, 60, 70 points, and he was supposed to be a defensive guy. And his team was starting to give up big points to Wisconsin and Ohio State and everybody.
And he was running afoul of boosters.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, there's a whole bunch of stuff you have to do when you're the head coach. Craig, anything on Nebraska and the numbers I just put up?
I mean, no, not really. That's interesting. It's just one of a 100 different stats that could tell you why they have not been very good over the last 20 years. It's one of them. There's plenty. Max, I'm sure, outlines a lot of them. But, yeah, I'm curious to see who they're going to go out there and get. I think there's this romanticism of things that were, and I think there's a realization that that's not ever going to happen again. The 90s are over, and they will never return, no matter what Nebraska does. Like, there's nothing that they could do to turn that to where it was. That's Alabama's territory now. Maybe Georgia's to an extent, and besides that, I think everybody else is kind of scratching and fighting to get the remaining pieces. But yeah, that era is over. That's not returning. And adjust your expectations accordingly. God knows you should have by now. You've had 25 years. So if you're still thinking of the 90s, hopefully it's just, fondly and then getting back to the realization that this is a much different game now. And there's not going to be any Tom Osborne that walks through that door. But, maybe there is a Dave Aranda. Maybe there's a Matt Rule like Baylor had to have, like somebody that just come in there and kind of get the mentality and the attitude and all of that back. I think they need that as much as they need anything, is what is their identity? Who is Nebraska football at this point?
There is none. The only thing they have is their memories. The only thing they have now are the memories.
And that's what I mean is, you talk about go get this guy, go get that guy. Like, first of all, you need to figure out who are you? Who are you at this point? And yes, you look at Iowa or Wisconsin, and that's kind of like, hey, there's the blueprint, and there's a route that makes sense. But, I know that the ambition is great, and they want to return to the promised land, and I'm sure they feel like there's a guy out there who can do that, and certainly there's the support, and certainly you hit on the right guys in recruiting, and you look at Kansas right now with Jalen Bean or with Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal and guys like that. It's possible to build from anything, really. So I don't think hope is lost for Nebraska, but I do think they have to be realistic about who they are and where they're going and where college football is going, and figure out and find somebody who can take advantage of what is uniquely Nebraska that can aid them moving forward, because they're not going to be just stand there and go toe-to-toe with fistfuls of cash and expect to come out on top versus everybody else that's got fistfuls of cash. So I don't know who can do that. But I do have hope that Nebraska can be a respectable program that wins a bunch of games. I just know that it's just never, ever, no matter what they do, ever going to be like it was in the 90s.
They have as good of facilities as most anyone else, and they're building a monstrous facility, so they know they have to come up with somebody. Otherwise, they're just building what will be eventually like the relics of the Roman Empire. Also, they are getting the money because of the Big Ten and the TV and all that, plus now the college football playoff. The problem with them is they don't know who they are. As you said, they don't have an identity, Paul and Craig. They don't know who they are. And so someone asked about that, and I saw Max's article on Scott Frost and Nebraska, and that is, like, again, termites, you don't see them until it's too late. And it probably is too late. And now, okay, the question was, if he doesn't get it done, who can? Well, no one knows. No one knows whether you go and get somebody with a shady past or you get somebody that's on the up and coming, or who it might be. I don't know. But that stat really did blow my mind.
Growing up, okay, there was a team that ran the option. There was the black shirts. There was Scott Frost. There was Tommy Frazier and a litany of great players. But it was a team that ran the option and, played great defense. And now I don't know. They've been so many different things over the years with so many different faces leading the charge that it's puzzling to me of who they are. They're, at their core, one of the most dedicated and loyal fan bases that you could ever find. Nobody wants, their program to win more than Nebraska fans do, and that's been going on since the program began. But yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to think of when I think of Nebraska football beyond the nostalgia in modern day college football. I don't know who they are. I don't know who they're trying to be. I don't know what their uniqueness is outside of just the loyalty and go big red and all that. They're just kind of there, and they need somebody to come in and show them what they can be and guide them to what they need to be, because right now they're just hoping that money will solve problems, basically. And they've tried that over and over and over again, and they're in the exact same place they were basically since the year 2003, 2004. I mean, when did, I guess, the ball really get rolling downhill?
Solich was fired after the 2003 season.
So since then, basically.
Yeah, they had the Ndamukong Suh team that could play with anybody, and we saw that.
Should have won a Heisman.
But
we know that.
Then after that, it's been hit and miss for quite some time. 329.